Okay, hi students, science students. Just some of the other teachers around here gave me some feedback on the video, and we thought that I would redo that for you a little bit better so that it is easier to understand and a little bit clearer. Anyways, so when we are recording data in Excel from after we did our experiment, one of the first things obviously you do is you go and you open Excel, then you choose a new or a blank workbook. Okay, and this is the view that will open for you. So when we then open this up, in our first column we always put the independent variable. Okay, independent variable. Remember, independent variable starts with an I, which means I am the person that can change the independent variable. And in our case over here, we recently did a tennis ball drop experiment, and the higher we took it, we measured the return bounce. So I'm going to say our drop height, and I put in brackets centimeters, and that is my independent variable. Then in the next column, and this is different from the previous video, we put in average. When we are going to draw our graph, having the average and the independent variable next to each other is a lot easier. But as you know, this is also the dependent variable. However, our dependent variable average is made up of a different amount of repeats, and we do the repeats so that we can have a reliable experiment. A lot of students ask me how many repeats do we need to do, and the answer is you do enough repeats to know that you have reliable results. If you see one or two that are outliers, then you know that you need to repeat more, but with an absolute minimum of 3 repeats. Okay, so the first one we're going to say repeat 1. Now this dependent variable, as you know, is the bounce height, and that is also in centimeters. Now because we have the centimeters in the titles, we do not ever put centimeters below, because Excel wants to do mathematics on this, and if you put in, for instance, 20 centimeters there, that 20 centimeters is actually text, and it's not a number, so Excel cannot use that as a number, so we need to put it in as 20. Okay, that counts for all your repeats and the averages as well. Okay, so repeat 1, and then see, when you look at when I selected it, right there is a tiny little square at the bottom of the selected rectangle, and it actually changes my cursor when I hover across it. See how the big white plus becomes a black plus? Now I can click and then drag, and Excel will immediately just figure out this is something that it wants him to repeat. So there you go, repeat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as an example. Okay, so I'm going to also highlight this area here and then merge and center. Merge and center means make it one giant cell. Bing! So now we have the dependent variable and we have the independent variable. Okay, my different drop heights that I used was 20, 40, 60, 80 centimeters, 100 centimeters, and 120 centimeters. Now the average, we can let Excel calculate that for us a little bit later. So for repeat 1, from 20 we had 16 centimeters, 16 centimeters again, 15 centimeters, another 15 and a 16. Wow, that's really good. Accurate, repeatable results. So it's very reliable, isn't it? Oh, we forgot about 40 centimeters. So to do that, we can just click like that on the whole row, right click and then insert. It will shift it down for you. 40. On 40 centimeters we had 30, 25, 28, 29, and lastly a 27. On 60 centimeters we had 34, 37, 36, another 37, and a 38. General, really good results here. At 80 centimeters, we had 47, 45, 47, 45, 46. The group who did the 100 centimeter, they saw that their results were really good, so they had 63, 64, and 62. And they said they didn't need to do more repeats because that is a reliable test already there. And I agree with that. So if you have reliable results, you don't have to do 5 repeats or more. Then lastly for 120 we go 68, 69, 72, 68, and 69. There we go. Now we need to calculate the average of these. How you calculate the average, if you wanted to do it manually, you go 16 plus 16 plus 15 plus 15 plus 16 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you add everything together and you divide by the number of different repeats that you did. That is how we calculate the average for everything. Whether it's the average height of the people in the class, where we add everybody's heights together and we divide by 22 or 23, the number of students there are. But Excel makes it easy for us. So we click in the first column here where it says average, and we're in cell number B3. Then you need to make sure that you are on the Home button, or the Home tab. From the Home tab, towards the right at the top, there's a little something called Auto Sum, and it's got that big strange E that is the Greek letter for echo. So when you have that there, that is where you have Auto Sum. Now next to Auto Sum there's a little pull down menu, and we pull that down and then we choose average. Okay, so again we go to Auto Sum and we have average. If we choose sum, it's going to add everything for us, and we don't want that, we want average. So click average. And did you notice that it's highlighting towards drop height, and that's not what we want. We want repeat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we start by clicking on repeat 5, holding the button in, and then dragging back to repeat 1, and then you press the enter key on your keyboard. Bang! So immediately it just calculates everything for us. Now remember how earlier I talked about how my cursor changes when it goes over that little square down there. So as I go to that little square, it turns into a black plus. I click and I drag down. So what I'm telling Excel is this formula that I had in that first column, or that first cell there, I want that in all the cells. And there you go. There's your averages already calculated for you. And you will see that over here our formula is average C3 to G3. So there's C and there's 3 and there's G and 3. So this average is for there to there. Now as we move down, you can see this one. When you go to the next one, it is C4, because that is the column 4, C4 to G4. Next one is going to be C5, C6 to G6, C7 to G7, and C8 to G8. If you only have 3 and you pulled it across but there's nothing in there, it will not include them in the calculation. However, if you put a 0 there and a 0 there, now there's a number in there, and Excel will include that in the calculation. So do not do that, keep it empty, and then we have the average. Okay, now how do you insert a graph? Firstly, we click a little bit further down, and remember, when you insert a graph, we are only going to use the independent variable in the drop height over there, and then the average. And it's probably best practice if we put a centimeter there for average as well. Okay, so we're only going to use these two columns. Now, the easiest way to do this is by highlighting the two columns, then go Insert. From there we go to Charts. Can you see this is the Charts area? And this one over there is XY scattered. Now we use this for data that we are measuring. Whenever you can have a decimal point, then you use XY scattered. Otherwise, you're going to use, over here, you're going to use a column chart or column graph. So we pull this down, and for year 8 and 9 we just need to use this one over there. And can you see, just by moving across, it's already drawing my graph for me. And it showed us that at a drop height of 20, the bounce height was 15.6 on average. Now let's have a look. 20, 15.6. Look there. At a bounce height of 40, the return or bounce height, or at a drop height of 40, the bounce height was 28.7, 40, 27.8. Okay, so there's our chart. Done. How easy was that? You then scroll your wheel down a bit so that you have the chart in the middle. Now over here you can choose various different styles of how you want this. It's up to you. I like to keep it simple, so I just go back to the first one. Now, very important, what do we need? See there, it says chart title. How do we change that? We double click it. Okay, and then you highlight the text and you type in measurement of bounce height. And then we also, what is on this axis? I don't know. We need to give it a name. Now remember, you remember the picture of the chair where we had the eye at the bottom? Remember, our chair basically looked like that, and it was a fancy office chair which had little wheels. Whee! And there's our back seat. Okay, that's our chair, but if you now look carefully, you will see that there is D for dependent, and that is on the y-axis. And here is our I for independent, and that is on the x-axis. See that? So if this was the y-axis and this was the x-axis, then you can immediately see our I, our independent variable is always on the x-axis, and our dependent variable is always on the y-axis. So going back to the chart, I then go and I select my chart. Just want to take out of this drawing. Select my chart, click there for chart elements, and I add axis titles. So I know on the y-axis is my dependent variable, so that was bounce height, and I measured that in centimeters. And then on my x-axis, that is the release height or drop height. And that was also in centimeters. And that is how easy it is to do a graph in Excel. Okay, so you can clearly see from this that the higher you drop the ball, the higher the return bounce. So that's our conclusion. The higher we drop the ball, the higher the return bounce. If we wanted to add something more, which you will use a lot more in as you become more senior student, you go to chart elements and we add something called a trend line. And now you can see that's also known as the line of best fit. And that dotted line is what we can do to then predict if I go to 90, how high will it bounce back? So 90, I can go up, and then I can see that it's going to bounce back at about 55 centimeters. And that is how we use this graph. Okay, I hope this helps. Please let me know what you think, and good luck for your upcoming assessment. Thanks for that. Bye-bye.